Hello and welcome to Maltbox, the non-chill filtered whiskey blog. I'm Andy and this is Whiskey Review 114. This is also the second part in a 4-part mini-series where I'm looking at American whiskies. So far I've looked at the Maker's Mark 46 and today is the turn of another bourbon whiskey. But what is it? It's quite widely available. It's quite a striking bottle, quite noticeable on the shelf. It's this Bulleit Bourbon Whiskey. And there is the bottle, guys. So, Bulleit is a very old brand of bourbon. It's been around for a long time. It's got a very rich history. Now, I'll be honest, without further ado, might as well address it straight away. There is no distillery called Bulleit Distillery. So it's not like, for example, Jack Daniel's Distillery. There is no Bulleit Distillery, alright? Historically, Bulleit was actually produced at Four Roses. However, the current makeup of Bulleit Bourbon itself is relatively unknown. Diageo are quite tight-lipped about it. So historically, Diageo had an agreement with Four Roses where Bulleit would be produced using Four Roses stock to a specific mash bill made up to their spec. It was then matured off-site, away from Four Roses at another site. However, that agreement ended a few years ago. I'm sure there's probably still a little bit of Four Roses spirit in there, but how much and to what degree, I don't know. So we're not too sure where this is actually made at the minute. Now, one thing I've not actually touched on is mash bills within bourbon. So the predominant ingredient in bourbon is corn. Unlike Scotch whisky, where it has to be 100% malted barley, for example, for single malt, or malt whisky in general, in bourbon, you've got to have a minimum of 51% of your mash bill to be made up of corn. After that, it's generally made up of either rye or wheat, and then malted barley. So predominantly, it's corn. There's a lot of corn in there. That's where you get those sort of sweet, buttery, vanilla-y kind of flavours, apart from when it goes into cask, obviously. Now, the mash bill for Bulleit has a hell of a lot of corn in it, over 60%, so that's a big chunky number, and it's also got a relatively high rye content as well, and the rest, I think circa 10%, 11%, is then made up of malted barley. So, Bulleit. Now, I picked this up in Tesco, so you can easily find it in supermarkets. This particular version set me back about £25, I think. Normally retails here in the UK between 20 and 30. You can find it on sale. It is bottled at 45%, and as with all bourbon whiskey, it does not contain any added colourants. So all of that colour is derived from that first fill, brand new oak maturation there. It's generally believed that the whiskey that goes into Bulleit Bourbon is between 5 and 8 years old, although I think that might have actually gone down to 5 to 7 from memory. I could be wrong. If I'm being honest, you could probably tell already. Bourbon and American whiskies isn't really my strong suit, which is why I kind of wanted to try and do this mini-series, not just sort of like showcase what these have, but kind of educate myself a little bit more as well. I'm trying, guys, I am trying. I know there's a lot of bourbon enthusiasts out there that are probably cringing at what I'm doing right now, so guys, I do apologise. So a really, really nice sort of like colour there. Nice deep gold. Hey Luna. And there we go. Not now. We're drinking whiskey. We're busy. Some nice slow, long legs on the glass there. On the nose. Hey pudding. Sorry guys. It's either Winston or Luna. So this is Luna. I don't think she's really starred in too many of the videos so far. She's quite shy. Until this evening, it seems. So, on the nose anyway. Hey, who's that? Oh, do you want some? No, you don't want some. Right. There's a little bit of cherry on there. Now, cherry was something that, if you've watched the Maker's Mark 46 review, is something I found to be quite dominant on there. There is some of it here again, but it's a bit lighter. There's a lot more vanilla on the nose here for me than the Maker's Mark. Yeah, a lot of vanilla in there. A lot of spice. There is quite a fair bit of rye influence for me, to be fair. Predominantly those spices. There's a nice bit of heat in there. Some coffee. A lot of toffee and sort of like a caramelly note in there. Yeah, and quite a nice nose all around, to be honest. Very, very pleasant indeed. Not too prickly. It's got a nice, as I say, spiciness to it and a nice little bit of heat. But when I say that, it's not unpleasant. It's actually quite nice. So, on the palate. I can't have any time to myself, can I? Right, so first things first, for me the palate is not actually as rich as the nose would suggest. I was expecting a bit more from it. There's vanilla on there, yes. There's a little bit of that toffee. There's also a little bit of that coffee as well. Spiciness is there again, which again I mentioned on the nose. However, it is quite rye, if that makes sense. If you ever tried a rye whiskey, there's a lot of lovely spice in there. There's a little bit of orange peel as well. The mouthfeel's not too bad. I would have expected a little bit more, given the strength, to be honest. Going into the finish, quite soft, quite supple. There's those spices in there. There's a little bit of ginger maybe, bringing a little bit of heat. There's a lot of oak influence, as you would expect, as when you mature bourbon you have to do that in first fill casks that can never have been used before. Virgin casks, should I say, rather than first fill. The finish is quite long. I've mentioned the ginger, I've mentioned the heat. That is continuous, going down now, quite prevalent. And again, I'm getting maybe a little bit of that orange peel, citrusy thing going on. Do you know what? It's not bad. It's all right. It's all right. Is it better than the Maker's Mark 46? For me, no, it's not. It's not as good as the Maker's Mark 46. There's a few similarities to it. I mean, it had that nice sort of cherry note that I'm quite fond of. However, ultimately, I think it sort of lacks a little bit of complexity on the palate, to be honest with you. And it didn't have quite the same mouthfeel as the Maker's either. Now, as I did with the Maker's Mark, speaking of which, I'm also going to be recording a cocktail video once I've hung up here. So I'll be showing you how to make a pineapple whiskey sour with this whiskey. So each review that I'm doing in this 4-part mini-series, I'm then going to be doing a short video. I'm not going to call it a tutorial because I'm not qualified to call anything a tutorial. And I'll be basically running through a video to show you how to make a really easy cocktail at home, and the pineapple whiskey sour is really easy. So, thank you very much for watching, guys. See you soon.